I'm going to say it in the introduction. Just trying to get everything settled. We're streaming live. For those of you who didn't know, we are streaming live. He's not. So just want to kind of give you a heads up on that. I heard to where?
Yeah, this was I used to work there. Oh, the 20 years ago.
Welcome everyone to the College Recruiters College Recruiting Boot Camp, How to Hire Diverse STEM Candidates. And my name is Andrea McEwen-Henderson, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. So I want to thank all of you for coming out and joining us this afternoon. I want to thank Verizon for hosting our event. And as I told you just a few minutes ago, we're streaming live. So for those of you who are joining us via live stream, welcome to the College Recruiting Boot Camp. So just to kind of let you know, between everyone who's sitting here and those that have registered to participate via live stream, we're between 75 and 100 people, so we're really excited about that. So again, thank you for coming out. College Recruiter, and I want to tell you a little bit about who we are, because I know a couple people said they had really never heard of us before. College Recruiter is the leading niche job board when it comes to recent graduates who are seeking new grad opportunities and for students who are searching for internships. We work primarily with Fortune 500 companies, but also some small and medium-sized companies on trying to hire, attract, and retain these candidates. These organizations sometimes struggle with finding these candidates, whether it's, again, college students looking for internship opportunities or for new grads. And again, we have the resources that can help them target them based upon certain criteria that the employers have chosen. Before we really get started, I want to give you some housekeeping tips. Okay, although we are going to be taking some breaks, but if you need to use the restrooms, you can go out the side doors and go up the steps. The ladies' room is on your left, and the men's room is on the right. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Judith Rudge, and she's the Senior Manager for Verizon's University Relations, Diversity Talent Partners, and Leadership Development Opportunities. She also used to lead Verizon's college recruiting efforts here at headquarters, and prior to that was the Campus Recruiting Manager for BDO USA. So help me welcome Judith. That was next on the agenda. I was all excited to be Stephen for a moment. But we wanted to really welcome you. And I mean, when I say welcome, I mean just welcoming you the Verizon way. So a joke I made earlier was that if you do not have Verizon, your cell phone will not work. Okay? So, but to be serious, your cell phone really doesn't work in this room unless you have Verizon, just because we're a little deeper down here. So this is our corporate headquarters. And just as a business alone, we hire about 25,000 people a year. So a huge amount of hiring that happens for our business. But in addition to that, we do a lot of college hiring as well. And some of the things that we used to do around our college hiring is really changing, which is why we really love the opportunity to have College Recruiter here and working around STEM talent. How many of you drive and listen to books on tape or listen to something in the morning that gets your mind turning? Any of you do? So I'm huge about the books on tape. My commute just doubled. I just moved. My commute used to be 10, 15 minutes. Now it's 40 minutes. So I figured I can learn something. So I'm reading The Power of Habits right now. And some of the really interesting things I'm learning are around how a lot of the habits that we have, we don't even think about anymore. So in the morning, are you thinking about putting toothpaste on your toothbrush? No, you just do it, right? When you're reversing your car, are you thinking, okay, it's time to, probably when you were younger and you were learning how to drive, you were thinking around those lines, but now you just do it. You just go, you go to work, you're in that zone. And one of the things that made me think about was how the habits of how we used to recruit STEM and any kind of technical talent has had to change over the past couple of years.
One of the things we keep noticing is that the pool keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Less women are graduating with technical careers, less diverse candidates are graduating with technical careers, but as you know, our aspirational goals do what? Hire and hire. You show your manager, there's only 2 people in the country with this particular skill set, but you want to hire 5, right? So that's the world we live in now. And I tell you this, 5 or 6 years ago, we may not have even thought of hosting an event like this with our competitors in the room, right, for the space. But those are some of the habits we have to change to be able to get to that next level of recruiting individually. So just know that while you are in our home, we welcome you here. Some of my team is here as well to learn from you, and they're going to offer as much of what they're doing as well to offer to you what you're doing in your recruiting efforts. But completely open-minded and really excited to have you guys here because you're all kind of in the same game as we are, trying to distinguish yourselves with college talent, specifically in the STEM area. So with that, I'm going to give the baton back to Andrea and the team, and have a great day. We're all here, obviously, to answer any questions about what we're doing, but we're really excited to partner with you and collaborate on how we can find the right people. Good. No one outraged?
Thank you, David. And, I think I was so excited, I was remiss in doing a couple things. I want you all to kind of look at the back, and that is Stephen Rothberg, who is the president and founder of College Recruiter. So I'm really excited to have Stephen with us. And also off to, some of you in front of you at the table in the back, that's Grace Palmer, and she's the client services representative for College Recruiter, and real happy to have Grace with us as well. Again, kind of to piggyback on what Judith said, an event like this really is a great way to kind of hear what others are doing to generate ideas that you can have some takeaways that you can take back to your organizations to kind of implement. It's a great way to benchmark about kind of what you're doing against what other people are doing. So I just really find these type of forums to be really engaging and just a great place to kind of learn and kind of share kind of what's going on and share your pain points and your challenges, and to get encouragement to realize you're not alone. Right? I'm not the only one struggling with this at night. And to hear what others have to say. So as we begin to we're going to talk about 3 major topics today. Defining what diverse STEM recent graduates or students are best for your organization. Creating a strategy and tactics for finding and engaging with those candidates. And the third subject area is going to be hiring and retaining the best diverse STEM candidates. So those are going to be our 3 subject areas of discussion today. Kind of how the day is going to flow, we're going to have discussion for about 45 minutes. We're going to take a 15-minute break, reconvene with the next subject area, and we will conclude our day by 4 p.m. Eastern. Right? Also, because we're streaming live, every time we come back, I'm going to do kind of an intro. So just bear with me, okay? You're like, I heard that in the beginning. But because we're streaming live and people will be able to view this, at a later point, we want them to know what they're viewing, okay? Y'all with me? We okay? All right, okay. So from now until 2 p.m., we're going to discuss our first topic, which is defining what diverse STEM recent graduate and students are best for your organization. And I think we could really just open that up and, anybody can jump in. So I'm going to, I want to see. I want to pick on somebody. Anybody, let me say. No, I'm going to let you do it first. How does your organization define what is a diverse STEM candidate? How do you define that? And what is this profile like that's best for your organization? Who wants to tackle that first? Where's Jennifer? Tracy. Where's Tracy? Tracy, you want to share for me?
Sure.
Thanks.
So I work for Air Products. We're a chemical company, and we hire mostly chemical mechanical engineers, a few IT folks, but primarily the engineers. And for us, we hire across from bachelor's, master's, and PhD because we have technology needs as well. So how do we define? For us, the minimum criteria for us is 3.0 GPA and higher. And we have a pretty healthy internship program that feeds into our we call it career development program with a multi-year rotational type program. So we try to pull our full-time hires through from our intern program, and we're pretty successful at doing that. We have target schools that we go to, and we partner with some of the diverse organizations as well, and some of the employees groups at the schools, and that's kind of where we start.
Anyone else? Here's your phone, Jim.
So Jim Albrecht, I work for Selective Insurance Company up in Branchville, New Jersey, and we're a property casualty organization for both commercial and personal lines. So for us, for the STEM students we need actuaries. So we're looking at mathematics majors, typically undergrad, but masters will feed as well. We have a robust internship program. In fact, our interns started just today. About 35 of them there in our corporate location. So there's an opportunity to rotate through actuarial, finance, and so forth, and be picked up by the organization. The other students we look for would be the engineering students for what we call our safety management program. And this is traditionally in the industry called risk control or loss control. But these are the ones that go out and look at the accounts with the underwriters, determine acceptability of the risk, price the risk, advise the clients on what could be a safer work environment to mitigate or minimize, or in a perfect world, eliminate losses, which we know will never happen, but they are an integral part of the underwriting team. And while the industry has gotten away from the engineering side because it becomes more client advisory and a communications individual, some of our managers are a little bit more old school, and they look for the traditional profile, which is a pure engineering or ergonomics type of student. So we're still looking for a lot of those engineering types throughout the country.
So, my name is Lisa Potter. I work for McGraw-Hill Financial. I do global campus recruiting. So, STEM in the financial services world is the definition is different than other companies I've worked at, in the sense that we would hire mostly STEMs for IT software development jobs, and as you know, a major challenge with that is I would say 85% of our applicants are international students, which become very difficult when you have a visa quota to work with. We have on the S&P Standard & Poor's rating side, they would be open to hiring STEM students for the ratings business. The challenge with that is they don't consider really Asians as diverse in our population, because 60% of our candidates are Asian descent. So the biggest need and necessity is African American students and Hispanic students, which really challenging. Like every year, just if we could barely get 10 people through the pipeline, we consider we're doing very well. So that's sort of the definition that we have to work with, even though legally it's not the definition that we have to comply with EEO, but it's a standard we have to set for ourselves.
And thank you for defining it that way, Lisa. I know in reading some surveys, just how you're defining it. Female, African American, Hispanic tends to be what most organizations, when they're looking at targeting diversity, that's what they're looking at. It's going to be those criteria. Anybody else care to share that? Or anything around what they're doing or how they define it? Come on, Jennifer.
Well, I think I would say it's just a matter of like really differentiating how you attract that talent on campus and externally. I think sometimes you have to wear the college student hat and think about where they hang out on campus as far as identifying, where to identify that talent across the board. I think sometimes we think too much, this volume of the different diversity populations to attract, but sometimes we forget we have to take a step back and think about where are the students, what do they want, and how can we do things a little bit differently for that population based on what their interests are. So maybe it's not always a career fair all the time. Maybe it's doing different things that they like to do on campus, whether it's some kind of program or some kind of, big event that happens on campus for those students and having those kind of things. So it's really about knowing the population and their interest in life, and really to help them understand what your organization brings to the table, and what's in it for them.
I think that rise into our STEM for us. We're recruiting into IT as well, right? So that big group of people that are graduating with a computer science major, some kind of, they know how to program languages, that's going to be a big bucket. Our network engineering also requires, we're looking for computer engineering majors as well. Then we still have a bit of the STEM too, where there's a math interest there because we do hire database analysts. So we literally are going after almost all segments in that talent pool, and then one piece for us at least that we struggle in is going to be around location. So, we are, even though we're an hour away from a major metropolitan city, most students that at least we're encountering on big campuses want to be in these huge sexy cities, right? A San Francisco, a New York City, and Basking Ridge somehow kills.
Try to branch it.
So just to answer your question and to piggyback on what Jen's saying, most of us, I think, are looking for all segments of that group. And for us especially, we have a new product organization where we're asking people to come in with an engineering, a bit of a creative innovation, marketing mindset. I mean, we're basically asking the schools to produce magic for us. And that's where we're struggling as well.
And I think someone just kind of shared it, just the whole, when you start talking about it, you talked about it in your introduction and your welcome. The candidate pool is so shrinking when you're talking about the diverse, first of all, just diverse candidates in general, right? Because I just know I have heard employers say, we want the best and the brightest, we want the top 10%, we want the 3.0, right, student, and so that's going to narrow your pool right from the beginning. Then when you start talking about the STEM disciplines, now you're talking a smaller portion. Forget about that 10%. So then this is going back, and I was really trying to find it, and I couldn't get a real current number, but I'm going to use this for argument's sake. I'm going to say this might have been maybe back in, 2011, 2012. The number of diverse candidates, no, STEM candidates, not even diverse, was something crazy like 86,000. So if you're saying I want to recruit the top 10%, you're only talking 8,600. And forget about when you start, that was engineering, not total STEM, engineering. But still, 8,600 engineering students total. And when you start segmenting that out between like your EE, your Chem E, ME, but how many students are you really talking about? And everybody's trying to compete with for that same candidate, like crazy. Right? Seems like everybody's on that hamster wheel, right? And who can do it? Who can do it best? Who can do it the most? I remember I'm going to keep the company anonymous, and it was in this type of forum, and the VP asked the question: "Is there anything new?" And the answer was no. There really isn't this magic bullet, but it really is about who does it the most and who does it best. Right, hitting that candidate like multiple times. Go ahead.
I'm going to add to everybody's comments here. Also, in channeling the interest of potential candidate, right? So you have the different categories, software developer, that person really enjoy coding, for instance, right? And does that person want to give back to, let's say, the healthcare community by way of his technical skills as compared to working for Google? What we have found with some of our customers is that Google's not as attractive to some candidates because they're more interested in working in the healthcare environment and using their technical skills. So not only their technical passion, but their industry passion. And the retention rate gets up and increases significantly.
Well, you kind of, and I'm going to kind of piggyback that question, which kind of, I don't know who wrote this question, but it really was like what really, really motivates
the STEM diverse candidate. So like, what is the motivation factor? And I guess how do you and that was another question, how do you communicate that? Because what I heard you say is not, sometimes it's about that company, that sexy company, and I want to do that, and other times it really is about passion and what drives them as an individual. So how do you communicate that? Or how are you getting your messaging out there about your organization that taps into that student's passion?
That's a great question. You know, in some of our interviewing processes, multi-step interviewing processes, some of the questions that we ask from a behavioral interview perspective talk about just letting that, you know, asking a question and letting that person talk. You know, what are your passions? How did you get into this? You know, why did you get into technology? And you'll hear folks say, candidates will come back and they'll say, well, you know what, my dad was a computer programmer, my dad is a computer programmer. Well, you know what, my dad was a computer programmer, but I really got interested in some of the computers he had. You know, you go back to the Commodore 64, you go back to, you know, the Mac 2E, or things of that nature, and I just took a very genuine interest in it. And then we now also ask questions about, well, you know, why would you want to work in the healthcare industry, for instance, instead of Google? I mean, everybody wants to Google. Everybody wants to work for Google, and, you know, Silicon Valley. Why would you want to work for, you know, a healthcare company? And some of the answers that came back were, you know, my family member was in the hospital, and, you know, they were dying, and I saw all the different computers that were being brought in, computers on wheels, for instance, and the different machines they were being hooked up to. And I knew there was a technology aspect to that delivery of that healthcare. So if I can get back to the healthcare community by using my technical skills, that's what I want to do. That's why I don't want to work at Google. That's why I want to work at this company. And those people were very successful in the program. And the people that answer, well, you know, this seems like a great opportunity, but, you know, Google is kind of sexy, and, you know, I may, if they do come calling, I may think twice about, you know, staying or going. So, you know, you got to walk away from those types of candidates. You know,
You make a great point, though, at being able to identify those differentiators in your pool.
Right.
You know, whether someone really wants to work for you, or they're just, I remember once, this is millennia ago, I had a campus person tell me, just practicing on your company. I thought, is this a faster way to get your resume to the trust? So I love that, though, like just being able to explore more, and probably thinking, all of us, probably to think better about what kind of questions we're asking, right, to get to that. Are they really interested in working in your industry, or are they just practicing?
Kicking tires.
I think one thing too is to piggyback off of what Jen said also, is to kind of be proactive instead of reactive. You know, if we're on these campuses and we're speaking to these students, putting on the student hat and asking them, what are some things that interest you? What are some things that you like to do outside of even, you know, being in school? What are some of the ad hoc things you like to do? And then being able to relate that back to the company and say, oh, you like green initiatives? Well, let me tell you what our company does in this space. So something that will get the student thinking about, you know what, I really want to apply, to get them to apply, and to get them to be kind of open to, you know, this company might be what I'm looking to do. You know, so I think maybe, you know, when you're on those campuses, just kind of asking those questions to kind of determine what the interests are of the students, and then be able to relate that back to what the company does.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like these conversations can be had in every phase of the interview process, from your first engagement up until your behavioral interview when you're seriously considering them. I think a major distinguisher is to truly show a sincere care for what we can offer them, but also what they can offer us, and to learn about who they are, because my challenge is I have a very diverse client group across the country, and a lot of them want that certain bucket, that CE or that EE, and from this area only, and they get really focused on that, and they kind of lose sight of who the actual person is, or who might be potentially joining their team. So the more you learn about the student, what their passions are, they might have an electrical engineering background, but they might be also able to handle responsibilities outside of what the fundamental elements of that degree are. And what better way to try than to get in front of that team and show them what their true passion is, and then they can contribute. Not only do they contribute because they have to build a resume or experience, but they contribute because they're really invested into what that team is doing. So it allows me to move my buckets around strategically, so I have candidates that might not fit the typical profile profile of what I'm actually looking for, but I know them enough to really at least get their foot in the door and let them sell themselves at that point too. So it's really understanding more than just what you see on the resume of that first 2 minutes of what you're talking to at a career fair or a preliminary screen.
But also, I think the recruiting starts a lot earlier than before. Like they get branded with all the social media and they get bombarded way early. So it's not just when they're ready to graduate, like previously 10 years ago. We used to target them when they're ready to graduate. Now we target them. And they have the technology, and then they start falling. So maybe we should keep the hospitals in the pregnancy ward.
So, and I think there's, I used to do it, the recruiting, STEM recruiting for a manufacturing company, right? So different type of engineering. I do make the distinction between different type of STEM and how challenging it is. I actually think getting female is one of the easier metrics to meet. If you look at purely the demographic stats for some of the STEM schools or the engineering school, they're close to 40 to 50%. There are some of the schools it's 40 to 50% female, so it's fairly easy. The challenge for most organizations 10 years into their career, when they're in the childbearing age, companies have policies that set up for them to be successful, stay in the workforce. That's when you see a tremendous drop. And when you get to the executive level, you have like a 10% population to go after, right? So I actually think female is actually one of the easiest ones. So looking at for hiring for mechanical engineers, MEs, and chemies. Chemies actually, most of them have a hard time finding jobs. There are actually a lot of them available. MEs are also flooded. EEs are getting harder, in my opinion, because some of the EEs, they do a lot of programming in school, so then they get poached for software development. So especially now, doing what I'm doing, what focus only on software programmers, I find that is the most difficult major to find out of all the STEMs. And then to then make it even more niche to say, focus on African Americans and Hispanics, that's even more challenging. And kind of to what everybody's saying, you have to go earlier, right? So my last company, we were talking about location. So manufacturing was not very sexy. Used to get, the reason was, people did not want to come with us because of, we're in Marinette, Wisconsin, Northern Texas. But reality is that was actually easier. Wow. I'm working in New York City now. They're like, we can't afford New York City. We actually get more rejection rate now than when I used to work for Tyco. And it's just, we could fill those jobs easily. And so, the cost of living comparison, like a lot of the engineering students, they love, to be part of the world where they can actually touch mechanics and be in that environment. So it's much easier to sell than just working for, like a financial service company. We just go in and every cube will look the same, but you're actually doing different products. I think location is, now I'm beginning to think it's kind of arbitrary. You sell whatever you sell, whatever you have to offer. And the best line of defense is with the hiring manager. I find that, we have to educate our hiring manager, right, to say, you can't get somebody who's junior and who have interned elsewhere before, because they may not be interested in your job, right? They want to go work for Google because they've been building resumes up. So you got to take somebody who's a sophomore, who has shown potential. They had a landscape business on the side, but they show entrepreneurship, and they show that they could self-initiate. And that's the kind of thing you look for, and then you build on that. So.
I heard just a couple things, and I just really want to share a whole lot. But let me ask this question, and I want to piggyback. I can't see Uncle Blake there, but
Sam.
Say that again.
Sam.
Okay, and actually, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask. And you talked about really kind of recruiting and targeting those candidates earlier. Who, by show of hand, who has like let's start with the high school initiative. Okay, and what company are you with? Air Products, and what company?
I'm with SAIC, so we're a government contracting company and defense contractor in IT and engineering.
Okay, so you guys have high school initiatives. Anybody doing anything in middle school?
Our foundation is.
Yeah, our foundation is.
Our foundation is. And again, remember the brand. So it's like if you're Fortune 50 and above, most of the time your foundation will kind of do some of that work for you in the back end, thank God. But yeah, our foundation is middle school, elementary school,
Well, and then I want to hear kind of some of the things that may be going on. I just want to share this, right? I remember doing a roundtable before. It was a transportation company. I'm going to leave their location and everything anonymous. And they actually had an initiative of really kind of growing their own talent. And because it was so competitive, the STEM disciplines, I'm going to say plural, that they worked with high school students. And if the high school student was willing to stay with them upon graduation from college, they actually paid for their college education. And then I don't know if it was 3 years or 5 years on the back end, but engaging them early, getting them excited, and again, transportation, you might think, bus driver, train conductor, but you're not talking about the infrastructure and all that goes into, as it relates to transportation. So I just thought that was kind of interesting in engaging them early, getting them excited about it, right? And saying, well, if you commit to us, this is our commitment to you. And if you do well, right, then this is our commitment when you finish. So I thought that was an interesting strategy. Anyone want to share kind of what you're doing around your high school initiatives?
And I'm just curious, everybody could share some stats, like what's the ultimate retention when it gets to converting to full-time, when you start investing in high school, if you have any stats, that would be great.
I don't think our partnership has been long enough to have them get to the graduation rate of graduating college. So I think that's both for us, any attraction touch point for us is important. So even if it's you were a high school intern and you go off to University of Michigan and you tell your roommate, hey, I did an internship at Verizon in engineering, and that roommate thinks, oh, Verizon, never thought about engineering. To me, it's worth it. Just to have that additional attraction touch point. But we don't have stats yet, unfortunately.
Actually, I see you said you had a high school initiative.
So ours is new too, so we unfortunately don't have stats, but some of the public schools have a technical expo, and we want to sponsor those. We're not sponsoring them yet, but we provide some of our business managers that come down and be judges for those expos and for certain categories like Java programming or engineering, and we'll have just some of our materials there. It's just more of an awareness so students can understand who SCIC is and what we do, so just kind of a marketing strategy there. And then in some locations, some schools have a program where high school students, when they graduate, they have an AA degree in a STEM-related field. So we've sponsored some students there, and when they graduate high school, they already have their AA degree. So we look for those type of programs that get involved there as well.
Let me throw out a couple stats that I saw. Female students in Delaware are 40% more likely to be interested in chemistry majors and careers. Female students in Washington, D.C. are almost twice as likely to show an interest in math and statistics, or math, statistics major or career than female students nationally. Male students in California are significantly less likely than students nationally to be interested in STEM. But this disparity is slowly decreasing. African American students in Alabama are 40% more likely than African American students nationally to be interested in engineering overall. And the last one I'm just going to say, and again we're talking about the shrinking pool, is students with STEM interests are nearly twice as likely to be interested in attending a vocational or technical college compared to students without STEM interests. So do any of you have any initiatives around like a two-year college at all? Let's see. I don't know, we kind of maybe answered this question. How to be an attractive career option for STEM graduates. This is funny, they're all anonymous, so I'm just kind of looking around the room. I don't know if you're rude. I don't know if you're rude. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
I work for NFI Industries, private company, national company, but I'm a one-man show when it comes to our college recruiting initiative, so we're very small case compared to large companies, and we're pretty much resurrecting our intern program and entry-level, graduates kind of going on stage. So we're really at a very foundational kind of level. So I'm really interested in, because we as a whole, as a company, are looking for industrial engineers, a variety of different IT graduates, and our company has recently been open to it. We didn't always hire interns, we didn't always hire entry level, but because we're experiencing such exponentially high growth, we're kind of forced to bring on individuals right out of college and kind of groom them and train them ground level, so that way we have a robust talent pool to kind of plug in when promotions and high responsibility type roles become available. So I'm really intrigued on how to just become that more attractive option to these STEM recruits when they have a lot of options, when every company is vying for their talents.
I have an idea. So larger companies not come from talking with students, getting their experiences from prior internships, and even our company, Verizon itself. A lot of our internship roles are not as dynamic or not as impactful as a student may want it to be. They want to put their thumbprint on a project or something that could provide recognition and make them feel proud about what they do, and they can take it with them to develop and build their career. I think that could be an opportunity for a private company or a smaller company, because you can create roles that have more impact or scope at a higher level, where you have your senior leaders really recognizing that effort, so that when they're getting closer to graduation, they have a clear understanding of how they can make an impact in your company's bottom line. As opposed to some of our projects, some of the feedback that I've gotten from our interns is that they don't really see the fruits of their labor, or the overall where the effort's done and how it really changed the business. Because at the end of the day, it seems like it's one of those standards out there. They want to make a difference, and it kind of is the initial point that drives them into a technical study. Is how they can make something that's already good even better. That could be an advantage.
I remember actually, I think it was last summer or the summer before, we had an intern that actually got a patent in his name while working with Verizon. So it's just not really about giving them that management of something to say they owned something in some capacity. And most recently we had our meeting with Universum, and Universum provides the survey feedback of students and what they're interested in. And I think the biggest takeaway that we saw was that they really want to know what their career path would look like at your company. So like even if we're thinking, okay, what would an IT career path look like for a student in the future? So you can go either a very technical track, or you can go a managerial technical track. So allowing them to see how their career would look like at your company, I think would be something to allow you to differentiate yourself, or a potential candidate to say, I can see myself working at that company because they are giving me what my career path may or may not look like, or these are the opportunities where I can actually grow my career and things like that. So I think that's another really good way of kind of putting it in a different perspective for the student to be interested in your organization.
Yeah, that's one of those, I think this summer I hired 15 interns, so small pool, and those 15 interns are kind of spread out, two engineers, 5, IT, majors. And so one of the things that I really stressed to the hiring manager was, let's provide a really quality experience for these interns, because we don't want to just bring an intern on and have them get coffee and do menial type tasks. We try kind of almost give them a snapshot of hey, this is a career opportunity that you can have with NFI 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So we want to make NFI kind of like that number 1, number 2 option when they do graduate. So something that hopefully that catches on in 6 weeks.
Is the intent after the internship experience this summer is that you're going to convert?
That's the goal. We were lucky enough, I actually have 3 interns that came back who interned last year. So whatever we did last year stuck with them. And a lot of those interns are niche for what we're looking for. They're not STEM recruits. They're more supply chain majors, which is what we're looking for. But build small bakeries. That's what we kind of do.
Chris, those will be some of your greatest ambassadors as well. Ultimately, because we had them last summer and back again this summer, they're going to be great people to go out and talk on campus. No one better than people who have actually done the job, been there, involved in the role, lived it day to day. They had the opportunity to interview you for 12 weeks, and they interviewed you during that 12 weeks and decided, hey, I love it here. As a result, I'm coming back again. I would definitely encourage you, as you look into your fall recruiting season, and from heretofore, start using them as your mouthpieces. Because, you know, we all know word of mouth works phenomenally well, right? That's how we do everything. Word of mouth. You go to your dentist because of word of mouth, or your orthodontist, or whomever, your plumber, so on and so forth. So I think this is definitely an opportunity that you can capitalize on as well.
Great, Cassandra, because, right, I'm going to piggyback on just what she said, right, they should be at your, if you're going on campus, they should be at your booths, they should be, you know, working with you to set up, like, you know, your info sessions or networking nights, right, they can't say it they can say it better than you.
And make sure you're wearing your gear. Make sure that you have your t-shirts on, the sweatshirt, the cap, the cuff, whatever you need to have them have, or maybe even give them stuff to hand out. I've been, in my past life, I've done things where that's exactly what we've done. We sent interns packages on campus with 100 t-shirts, flyers, all kinds of stuff. And we had them give it out at their club meetings.
They're your eyes and ears on campus. So if you really want to know where the diverse students are hanging out, you can probably ask them, they're going to tell you where they're hanging out. So definitely take that as an ambassador.
And the clubs are a good way to recruit athletes.
I have a challenge to that last comment, but I'll save that for the end. Okay. I'm going to phrase this question and keep it around the diverse candidates. So the question would be, how do other companies determine the rankings of their core school selection as it relates to diversity recruiting or recruiting diverse candidates?
Sorry, say that again.
How do other companies determine the rankings of their core schools around, I'm going to say around their diversity recruiting?
Overall production or percentage higher based on school?
There's some clarification in that question.
Yeah.
The question around,
I don't know who wrote it.
what is the heart of the question? What's the goal here?
How do you set up your
Tiering?
how do you tier
Yeah,
your schools?
that's the
How do
question.
companies do
Based on
that?
school diversity?
How do other companies determine the rankings?
Yeah, how do you hire
Oh,
a
yeah.
school list based on diversity hiring? Like, how would
How do you select
Verizon base their top 30 school lists? How would we do it? And I think that's number one.
I think okay, so at Verizon, we have a scorecard for all the schools that we have, and there's a couple different things. We look at the location, so geographically how close they are to some of our key hubs where we're hiring. We look at the graduation rates in the different disciplines. So in our areas where we have So in our areas where we're focusing on more STEM-related talent, we want to know what that graduation rate looks like in comparison to the university, and from that, what that diversity breakdown looks like. Because universities do offer that information that's publicly, so you can easily look that up. And we also look at, from a tiering perspective, if a particular school can provide us majors from one or multiple business units. So, for example, Rutgers will feed pretty much any program at Verizon. And then NJIT might only really fit our IT and engineering needs. So those are some of the elements like geography, the number of diverse graduation rates within their respective majors. What else am I covering?
Conversion rate?
Conversion rate, we do look at, we do see that we've had, sometimes some schools we do much better from a conversion perspective. That's another angle of it. I don't have my scorecard in front of me. There's another thing I can think of, but we do look at the number of diverse graduates within the respective programs to make sure that we're not putting ourselves, we're not attending a school that's not going to help yield at least some diverse numbers. But it's not the sole factor in our scorecard building and how we tier our schools. That's not including our HBC recruiting, correct.
And I know I saw that question, but I think I put it in the next bucket. But that was a question, definitely. So I don't know if we answered that question for the person who asked that question.
But that was the question. Okay, next one. And at the conclusion, I'm going to send an email tomorrow. Y'all going to stay within 48 hours, right? And I'm going to have like some links to some resources and things like that. And one thing that I'm going to pitch right here, I think is really cool, is we have just come out with what we call the Hidden Gem Awards. And the Hidden Gem Awards are schools that you may not think about going to, right? Because sometimes, and I'm gonna use HBCUs as an example. I have talked to employers, or a lot of employers, and you will certainly hear typically the Fab Five, right, is where everybody recruits, right? And then when you look at HBCUs in general, it's typically only 15 of 105, right? And when you start looking at recruiting African American diverse engineering students, there are actually 9. But of that list of 9, typically you'll hear from employers only 2. So, but what the Hidden Gem Awards is really going to get you to think about, depending upon the discipline, schools that you may not recognize. So again, in my follow-up, I'm going to send the link and take a look at the list. Right? I really, kudos to our president and founder for coming up with that concept. Because again, in talking with employers, it will typically be like this list of schools. Well, if you're going there, probably a zillion other people are going there. So you're all trying to compete for the same candidates, but if you just broaden your view just a little bit, you're like, wow, look at some schools, hadn't even thought of it. Never thought about, X, Y, Z school. So again, that's going to be kind of like my resource link to you when I said my follow-up. Okay, I digress.
Let me throw in just a little bit, a little addition. The thing that was different about the Hidden Gem Awards that we just announced is that it's not just the schools where there are good candidates, but it's also where employers are going to be able to hire them. Because even today, there are students available, right? Like MIT is a fantastic school. Very competitive to get into, great candidates coming out of there, and you're not going to hire any one of them if you go on campus right now. But if you need people now because your company just landed a big new contract or your hiring manager thought the calendar said 2014 rather than 2015, you can go to these campuses and you're going to get really good talent today.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make. So at Schindler Elevator Corporation, we do not focus on the top 100 at all. So we know we're not going to get those candidates. Elevator Corporation. We're not a sexy company by any means. So we try to focus on, some of the things that we focus on is the geographical locations to our different offices. And we go after those local schools where a lot of times those students don't want to move there.
Right there with you. That's like we're not going to compete with the Ivy League and like that lower tier. Try to get the best candidates from those local schools and really just pounce on the local schools and make sure they know exactly who we are.
We can find some great candidates.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about don't want to stay local, right? It's kind of like that boomerang effect. I have read something that students will go away, but they want to come back, right? The family and friends. And a major pharmaceutical company, again, we'll keep them anonymous, hired all these candidates, right, and sent them wherever they were going to send them. But their retention was horrific because after 1 year, they wanted to come back, right? The family and friends, homesick. But that just reminds me of another article that said, Major Business Magazine said, you raised them, now can you manage them? So I think that's really kind of the issue, right? Depending upon how we raise them, we're the helicopter parents, and a whole bunch of things have gone into effect with this generation, and which is going to have a major impact with how we recruit them. Right? Okay, kind of like probably the last question that we're going to have time because we're going to wrap this section up at 2 o'clock. Where can we get diverse skill sets and the area, and we kind of talked about this, area in the country where the dropouts wouldn't be much. Anybody want to elaborate on that? Whoever wrote that? Okay, since you don't want to do that, let me read the question again. Where can we get diverse skill sets and areas in the country where the dropouts wouldn't be much? I don't know, we might have kind of answered that, just recruit locally, right? Again, I think where the location of where you're hiring or the need is. I don't know, anybody want to add to that?
I think you made a good point where you talk about recruiting locally. One of the areas that I support in the Midwest is that in the last 2 years they've had candidates come out from the coast or from these schools that are not local to them, and they invest time and resources into them, and they're able to contribute. And then as they got closer to graduation, they didn't want to come back out for full time, and because of those pains that they've experienced, now we're kind of bound to recruit locally in those areas, which is good and bad. It's good because it's less of a challenge for conversion, but it could be a little bit, it could be bad because there might not be talent in that area. So you do want to walk that line of recruiting locally, but you also have to you can't always limit yourself either. So the pockets, statistically from where you read, there are across the entire country in certain areas. So you have to have some sort of strategy and your recruiting process and your interview process has to be sound enough that you know you're getting a commitment when the student is going to accept an internship opportunity for if you have long-term aspirations to convert them, especially for yourself.
How many, by show of hands, how many organizations have a military initiative? All right, we'll go on this side. Who cares to share about their military initiative, kind of what you're doing? I can't see Courtney.
We have, it's only local to Minnesota right now. Our Recruit United Health Group, we're based out of Minneapolis. So we only have one recruiter doing it right now for the entire country, but it is pretty localized to Minnesota right now. We have planning next week to expand our diversity recruiting, which is why they sent me here. We do a lot of different programs, but the military and veteran is one of our fastest growing that we're really trying to impact for our next recruiting season.
Now there were more hands than that. Okay.
I work for American Express. This is our first year really having a veteran initiative. We don't have any set quotas or targets, but something we did this year is we had an on-site event where we invited different veterans from the local schools of the NYU, Columbia, schools within New York City. They came on site and heard from senior leaders who were also vets with American Express, and we also had the recruitment team come in and help them to kind of reformat their resumes so that they were readable to the general audience and making sure that it wasn't so military specific that the general person could understand kind of what their skill set was. So something that we've been doing just to kind of get our kind of brand out there to the veteran community and also just partnering with different veteran groups on campuses.
We had it was local, it was in the Tampa marketplace, and we had a networking initiative, from a large contract win. So we went out to a couple of the industry events, some of the specific job boards, for instance, host, veterans only type of career fairs, for instance. So we combined that with, an online presence, marketing, advertising, and we try to channel. We look for the folks that were working, mostly doing engineering, setting up networks, operations, support, the camps over in Iraq, for instance, right? So there was, with all these camps that were being built around the country when we were in the war, all those guys were coming back, and they were looking for jobs in networking and engineering, anything from pulling cable right through to setting up network servers, etc., and then supporting those networks, and then supporting the tactical communications, the strategic communications, of the soldiers in here. So we were successful in helping, to meet for this contract, to meet a initiative of having, I believe it was 4 or 5% of folks that were veterans. So it worked out well.
Okay. So we did that table. How about this table? Who had the military initiative? Somebody raised their hand.
Yes, so we did. I was really impressed by the program that we have in place now. I think this was our third year. And I participated in last year. But basically, we have 30 or 40 jobs isolated for military hire. And what we would do is we would go to base camps across the country and recruit anyone who's going to be out of active duty, so able for a full-time position. They interview, and then we set them up for a 4-week training program in an isolated location in Dallas. And after the 4 weeks, we would then send them to a location for full-time employment. And that